So, sind wir.
Right, so we're almost on time, Bernard. Yeah, almost. A lovely good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There are some people still standing outside, but let's just start and try to get them in with our talk. Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you here at the Institute for Driving Assistance in Benningen here. So basically at the belly of the world, the center of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, just as last year, I would love to welcome you here on the evening to the evening event. Innovate for the Future 2023, 4. I'm not the only one today, so and therefore, so that I don't speak too much first, I have the head of the institute with me, Bernhard Schick. A warm welcome also on my behalf. My name is Bernhard Schick, and together with my esteemed colleague, Wolf Jung, we are the heads for the driving assistance and networked connected mobility. And I'm more than happy to guide you through the evening program. We have very interesting keynotes on the schedule, ranging from BMW, Audi, and Continental. We also have a panel discussion there, and most and foremost, we basically changed the program that we can watch the football as well. So we changed the program such that the dinner will take place during the football screen. We have a great screen here, so therefore look forward to the evening. It'll be an exciting evening. Well, Bernhard, then can you tell me and us, the forum Explore-to-Innovate, what is it exactly, and what was your motivation for that? Well, basically, if you just say it just frankly, well, research makes money from knowledge. This is basically the task, so generating knowledge and money at the end of the day. And very often there is a huge gap, and most of the time we don't manage to get all the great ideas into reality, into the industry. Basically, research only makes sense if it reaches the driving industry, the automotive industry, and people can use it. And this is very difficult once in a while. Of course, we have people that go into the industry later on, but some methods basically they're not continued. And the idea here is to build this bridge, because we have many people, many technology partners that have an exhibition here with which we also cooperate in different areas. And Explore-to-Innovate has the goal to highlight and to boost this innovation process, so that we think more about innovation, and we want to get away from this presentation bit. And therefore we said, well, there's a second day where we show practical examples. We can see demonstrations, and there will be demonstrations, because at the end of the day it's only about hardware when you can make things tangible. And this is the idea. And back then, when we rolled out the simulator, this idea was born, and you were there as well, as I remember. And then we said, well, basically we should do that every year. And now I think it's the third, or basically if you want to, it's the fourth event, starting with the rollout, and it gets bigger and bigger. And we had an increasing number this year already of participants, of technology partners, and I think that there is still leeway to the top. Well, Explore-to-Innovate has 2 days. So today we have the science talk. So this was this morning. Then we have this evening event and the track day tomorrow. So what is going to happen on those days? Well, when we had the first version, there wasn't a science talk at all. So we started last year to say, well, we basically have to give the opportunity to technology partners and to scientists to show what they can do. So today, basically, we had 4 rows, basically, and there were so many topics that you could choose from. And I think the talks were amazing. We had talks from BMW, Mercedes, etc. And we want to boost and promote the exchange from science and technology. And well, the first day was quite compact. Actually, the day of today could fill a 2-day program, but we basically finished it in 1 day. And with this evening event, we created a podium discussion and a keynote session, so that you get insights into what's the thinking of the industry, what are their needs, because basically we have to orient our research towards the industry. Then the second day is basically a demonstration day. It's about just having different use cases in a driving simulator. We have a steering wire system on site. We have a TAE as a demonstrator. They have the R8, which is equipped with robots. We have a vehicle from Eventus with the new semi-active stabilizers included, etc. So a lot is offered on site, and every year it gets more. And it gets more just to show what has arrived. Because we are or have been participated in many, many topics, and we are quite proud that we can show that. And it's also great for the employees because they can say, look at that, that's cool. We were not working in the ivory tower, and at the end of the day, no one cares. But the fact is that they can be proud and say, well, we participated in that. We were part of it, and this is an inspiration for new ideas. Yeah, and this is where the knowledge transfer comes in, right? Okay, so we or you can basically look forward to a great night. And in the true meaning of a sense, we can basically relax because there's a lot to see. But before we start, I would like to mention some organizational stuff on bit. So we start with some words of greetings and exciting keynotes. After the two keynotes, there will be a short break. And I think in football, you say it's a water break. And then we have the third keynote, and you know when we start again, because we have a countdown running on the screen. And after that, we start into the podium discussion with exciting guests about human factor in the tangent field of development efficiency. And we try to finish by 6:10, 6:15. Of course, it depends on the discipline of the speakers. But we tried to have, almost the entire first half. So at 6, I think the match will be displayed outside, and then after the event, we will show it here as well. So you can stay here if you want to. So it's not worth going home, basically, or just going into any football party, because here you have food, you have drinks, and a huge display on the screen. At the same time, there's a technology display exhibition taking place outside in the tent. And Bernhard talked about knowledge transfer, and we have many clever people on the stage. There may be some questions that cannot answer questions, so therefore we have our staff that is just everywhere. If you have any questions, ask them, and then you get your answer. Well, that should it be from our side. Well, basically we talked about the football, and now let's start with the kickoff, basically, which brings us to the next speaker. And Professor Dr. Wolfgang Hauke, the president of the University of Applied Science, will be the speaker, studying in the Allgäu region, working in the Allgäu region. Living in the Allgäu region. Come here for work and enjoy in the mountains. And enjoy yourself in the mountains. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bid you a warm and cordial welcome here in Memmingen. It's almost a tradition that during this time of the year, our Institute for Driving Assistance and Connected Mobility has this quite successful format of Explore-to-Innovate. And I try to remember how warm it was yesterday. I had a jacket on, and today I said I won't have my jacket here. But the weather is always nice, so Mr. Schick, thank you for that. I would like to welcome Herrn Alex Eder, responsible for the local authorities. And I would like to welcome the keynote speakers, Martin Peller, head of the driving simulator of BMW Group, Mr. Strasser, development of Functions Assisted Driving of the Audi AG, and Mark Hausmann, Head of Test Services, Infrastructure and Engineering, Campus Memmingen. Autonomous Mobility, Continental. Long titles, but they are great, great keynote speakers, so a warm welcome to you. And I would like to welcome Moritz Hess from FACT Group and all other employees of the FACT Group that are here tonight. Great thing. I think we have an amazing cooperation here with FACT Group, and a warm welcome to you. An additional welcome to the two heads of the Institute, Professor Bernhard Schick and Professor Rolf Jung, and all colleagues of the University of Applied Science and the IFM. Well, this is basically the abbreviation of the Institute that supports our University of Applied Sciences in multiple ways. I understood it. I need to be brief so that the content is not lost and football is not lost later on. But but please allow me to say a few words about the University of Applied Sciences. The University of Applied Sciences Kempten is driven by the high-tech agenda Bavaria, and the funds that are available for that for research and transfer has turned into a researching institute, and by connecting applied research, applied science and knowledge, we, the region and beyond, we can actually work for and supply the economy and economic companies properly. Of course, it will not be sufficient in a quantitative way, and we can only fill the gap with international students, and we try to get the number of students that we need. And therefore, it's a very important task of the University of Applied Sciences to adjust courses of studies, to generate new courses of studies in close cooperation with industrial companies. And I think, well, the build-up phase of the IFM, I think it was 1 year now, and it started into the next phase. I would like to show my hope by saying that the successful work of this institute is a lighthouse despite the lower budgets every year. So there are hard fights that are fought. Mr. Schick, you know it, we know it, but I think we're on a good track. There are many ideas at the institute and many great challenges that we have, and we only can manage to address those challenges with respective financial means. The success of the IFM is based on the win-win situation and the great cooperation, which is coined by the cooperation with the industry partners, but also coined by younger students that can be enthused for the work. One important point is with the University Innovation Law that came into effect January 2023, we have a promotion law, a new promotion law, and the University of Applied Science has applied for something like that, and in the next days we hope to receive a decision. But I'm very optimistic that we win this situation. Because with the help of a PhD center, it will become possible to provide more incentives for young researchers and scientists. And the mission of our University of Applied Sciences Kempten is competence by connected diversity. And this is shown and embodied by our center and our institute. All faculties with different professors are working in this area as well. The fundamental and basic thought behind this vision and mission is the idea that innovation can only be achieved on the basis of a productive cooperation between different players. And in the meantime, we have 17 faculties. They are assigned to different areas. So mobility, where IFM is part of it. We have production, energy and social innovations. And not to forget our startup center. This startup center also, because of new rooms that were available, is also growing and shows very much activities. So you can see the University of Applied Sciences Kempten is highly developing in different areas. But I did not talk about the teaching, basically, the teaching for 5,500 students. I hope that Explore-to-Innovate receives the same feedback, the positive feedback, and grows, and I wish all of you a very great and exciting evening. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Hauke. Thanks for the introductory words, and we will continue with words of greetings. There's a man here today that had a lot to do last week, and all those that live in the Unterallgäu region, they experienced themselves, and the better and the nicer it is that he took time to be here. Let's welcome Alex Eder, the district administrator. Ladies and gentlemen, I love to be here every year again and again, and I'm more than thrilled to see the number of growing people. I don't know how often it took place. I think 4 times. I think last year I went to, well, the other room and drove through Paris with 140 kilometers an hour. So those are things that are memorable and that make me proud as a district administrator. And this is the question that I ask myself over and over again. So when I see great things from technology, I ask myself, how can we as a district basically prepare the ground for it? Because it started basically around the test track of Mr. Fackler, and then later and later more puzzle pieces came in and a great competence center was established. And here in the center we have innovation and exchange. So the University of Applied Sciences there is here, Continental is here. I came here twice already to celebrate. So I think this place is a place where just a great and good right heads come together to develop further. And I think when Conti was opened up, I mentioned the volunteers because it was mentioned already in the last 2 weeks. I have to mention it. So we had to fight the floods, and we had 2,500 firefighters in that worked. So this is very important. But those factors, just like volunteers and people standing together, this is very important. So please allow me to have this advertisement block. I'm proud what happens, and I see this development very positive, and I look forward to next year already. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex Eder. So the next words of greeting come from a, how shall I say it? He's the host, or is here on behalf of the host. He will tell us. Please welcome Stefan Alde from Fact Group. Thank you very much. Professor Dr. Schick, Professor Dr. Hauke, District Administrator. A warm welcome on behalf of the company of Fact, in particular on behalf of Mr. Fackler. I would like to welcome you here on our premises, and we are more than happy that we can be of your service, that the premises are great, that the weather is nice, so thanks to the organization committee, because without you it wouldn't be possible. Let me tell you something about me. I've been working in automotive industry for 27 years. My name is Stefan Alde, and since January I've been in a position to support Mr. Fackler in the management. Just very briefly about the Fact Group. Well, you have to bear with me on this slide. Well, it's very interesting for many of you, because when it comes to the area of Benningen, here on the left top, Juncker Street 7, there we can find our mobility center. There we have proving grounds um, for alternative drives and test drives. So it's not an emission center, but a mobility center. Then we also have another point. So we are in the Innovations Park, which is here. The university basically is here as well, and we're very proud to have them as a partner, but the Fact Motion, they also have their offices here. Then we also have our test track, the Proving Grounds, which has developed amazingly in the last couple of years. And another thing that some people probably didn't know is we test things where we need warmer countries. So therefore we need proving grounds and test grounds where we can basically have 10 degrees centigrade for winter. And that's the reason why we have rented the testing grounds at an airport in Sevilla. In China, we have colleagues in the offices there, so they are sending out things to us that can be tested then as well. Then we have 20 colleagues in Italy. They talk about electromagnetic accountability, and they also take care of environmental simulation checks. Then a small little site in Switzerland. There's a team that displays the homologation of Swiss authorities. And last but not least, this colorful building is in Heimatingen, where you can have all the test benches. And the people that, the test engineers, the administration can be found there as well. Just very briefly about the company structure. Mr. Fackler founded it in 1996, so it was moved into a holding. So we have the three companies, Fact Endurance, Fact Motion Proving Ground, and Fact. Then we have the foreign subsidiaries, and Mr. Fackler, he is very supportive. So then our test tracks in Benningen, so basically I just go through it very quickly so you can see it either today or tomorrow. We have slopes integrated, we have braking tracks, braking areas where you can see the different values. So we have different brake measurements, we have noise measurement tracks, and well, the Autobahn is also very important. Then we have this roundabout here basically, which was built several years ago. And our services, we can offer other following. So for once, we have ADAS tests and CAP testing. What we also do is we do noise measurements and testings. So we have 2 noise measurement tracks that are certified in order to test the noises while driving. A very interesting point, which is not every day like, is tests for road protective devices. And also bridge simulations can be displayed so that you can see what energy is transported onto and is emitted onto the ground, and not only when we talk about the guardrails, what energy is put on the guardrails. Well, Innovation Park, we talked about it. Then 500 meters away into this direction, we have our 3 all-wheel test benches. Then we also have the endurance, where we test cars, agricultural vehicles, and also trucks. So the vehicle endurance testing is carried out there. So when it comes to our test benches, we have test benches for brakes. So what we do is we test according to development requirements. We have homologations, and we're very proud of the following fact. So we have many motorsports customers that are requiring our services. So there was a very exciting race just the last weekend, and we are so proud that we have so amazing employees that can carry out those tests. We have environmental solutions or simulations where we can have different things, and we also have a hydropulsar, which is an X's real-time device. Another interesting topic is hot gas tests. Unfortunately, the number of those tests are basically reducing. So currently we have very exciting topics with electric heaters for exhaust systems so that the chemical plant can be heated up. And those bands can reach 200,000 degrees Celsius. And our FACT technology team offers worldwide service and worldwide support. So to close the circle again with regards to innovations, this year we have had 2 new topics. So we started to test hydrogen refueling systems, and we also take care and deal with the topic of particulate matter measurements during braking process. Next to, or besides normal combustion engines, we take care of the question of hydrogen tanks. And this is a huge topic. So for example, if you can't basically, or you can't basically add a 5-ton battery to a tractor, for example, because then nothing will grow where the vehicle drives on. So we have different classes, several manufacturers in pressure ranges of 350 bar and 750 bars is what is developed. So we have manufacturers such as Claas, JCB, Kramer, Liebherr that already offer these. And the tank is a central component, of course, of those systems. And it doesn't matter whether it's a combustion engine or a fuel cell. There are different things that need to be in accordance with ECR 134. I can't explain to you everything because otherwise I'll be here for the next 2 hours. But a tank system that shall be used and operated in Europe needs to be tested in accordance with ECR 134. And these includes tests with substitute substances as well as hydrogen. We have pressure tests with 150% operating pressure. We have to have a burst test. We have to have a drop test that needs to be simulated. And the very interesting thing for us, the technicians, is pressure cycle tests that also that can be tested under extreme temperatures. Then what is also included is leakage tests at extreme temperatures that need to be carried out with hydrogen. So in the cage on the top right, we have a hydrogen tank in there. Then the pressure is increased continuously until the tank defaults. On the bottom left, you see our 3000 bar test system with 20 liter per minute of flow speed, and this is very important. So we have a specific cellar area where we have a steel plate that can be covered, that can be used to cover the entire thing, so that this security for our other safety and security for our employees is guaranteed. The next topic is fine dust. We all know that fine dust pollution is not good for our health. So everyone has heard about the topic of Euro 7. And in the Euro 7, there are definitely wheel wear, but also fine dust pollution due to brake particles. That is also included. So that means every brake system manufacturer, automotive manufacturer, but also every supplier needs to be and produce in accordance with specific requirements. So there are different laws that need to be adhered to, and now this is all applicable for vehicles, for passenger vehicles, then also for other types of vehicles. And when it comes to the trains, then of course there are also requirements that will be in effect as of 2027. And basically the dust there, the fine particulate, is different there compared to vehicle brakes. So there's a lot of difficulties in order to get hold of the topic of brake particles, fine dust when it comes to trains. So we have had the experience, and this is basically just logic for us to combine and bring together those different areas and supply the test benches. So we start with the development test bench in summer, and by the end of next year we will have 6 test benches in operation. So a typical test procedure looks like this. So the air basically that flows through the brake needs to be conditioned. So we start with a temperature of 23 degrees, 50%. Then you have defined braking procedures that need to be adhered to. And then after 30 hours, you have the final braking procedure. And then we have different braking scenarios where the fine dust particles are measured. So it can be compared with an exhaustion, but the difference is that the particles have a measurement of 2.5 PM10, which is smaller. So what happens here is that the air is pushed through with a high speed, and there are several things that can be simulated with an automation. So the air flows through, and we have an entire time of measurement of 4 hours. So what happens then is the air is taken out, this goes into the cyclone filter, and then the particle mass and particle number is measured. So here we can see the current setup. Basically what happens is we are just working on the automation, we're about to finish, and we are very optimistic that we can start the operation in July. So at this point, thank you very much for your attention. If you have any detailed questions, just approach us. We also have test benches displayed over there, and we are more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alde. Driving the future now. That is the headline for our first keynote this afternoon, and it comes from the head of the Driving Simulation Center of BMW Group, Martin Peller. Yes, hello and grüß Gott. Also on my part, I would like to say thank you very much for the invitation. I was glad to get the invitation. It's a great event here. I've already got a couple of great ideas here, and I'm the head of the Driving Simulation Center at BMW, and that is still part of research at BMW, which is kind of unusual, but this topic is so deeply in research integrated that we're still part of the research department. We have a couple of doctorants and so on and so forth, and so far networking is absolutely valuable for us. I would get started with my presentation then, and I only have to click on next, I suppose. Does that work? It does. I'm going to say more about the title at the end. I'll start with a short movie and then we'll take it from here. Yeah, the movie shows it, the pure pleasure of driving that is so important at BMW. And with our driving simulators, we want to be in a position to develop this pure pleasure of driving into our vehicles. Our customers evaluate our products, our vehicles very subjectively, obviously. When you think about virtual development and digital models, then you need a driving simulator in order to be able to evaluate things subjectively. And that's the reason why a couple of years ago, actually it's 7 years ago, we asked ourselves the question, how can we contribute to virtual development out of driving simulation in order to make our products more efficient, faster, cheaper, and more customer-oriented in our development? And so we chose this approach that is shown here. We started, first of all, with our specialist departments. We analyzed the product roadmap. So we took a look at what is our plan for the next couple of years. Then on the other hand, we took a look at what kind of technology are available to us, what kind of methods are to be expected. We took a look into the future, if you will. A lot happened, obviously, over the last couple of years, and then we worked out a bunch of use cases. Professor Schick said this morning already we need a use case-oriented approach, and that's what we did as well. That means we had more than 50 use cases for different departments that we described respectively in terms of what needs to be done, what kind of methodology do I need, what kind of requirements do I have on the technical side for the simulators in order to depict that, because there is not that one single simulator that can do everything, but you have to focus on certain areas. And that's the reason why we came up with this technical profile that we basically allocated to every use case. We clustered that, and then for our driving simulation center, we had a comprehensive concept that is available to all our departments. The respective resources and methodologies have been made available, which is very important because without methodology, the best simulator doesn't help you very much. And let's take a closer look at that here. What did we do there? What have we done there, I should say? I'm going to explain a couple of technical aspects with a view to our simulators, and then I'm going to show you a couple of examples and take a look into the future. So the result was our driving simulation center, which went operational about 2.5 years ago. 14 simulators under one roof, and that is unique. That is absolutely unique, because the operation and the developing of the methodology for all BMW departments is done there. If we take another look at the building, a closer look at the building, on the ground level, we've got 2 big simulators with a very big scope of movement. We've got the high fidelity simulator for one thing, which makes it possible to have very realistic movements for city scenarios that are difficult to depict. If I want to prevent motion sickness, for instance, and then we've got a high dynamic simulator, which is enabled to do highly dynamic movements. I'm going to show you a movie about that as well. So these 2 simulators enable us to show very realistic driving experiences and get the road into the lab, basically, and to really show the BMW driving pleasure realistically. On the 3rd floor, we've got a number of smaller simulators with different foci. A broad range of use cases are covered here, also in order to have more capacities for more tests. I'm going to show that in more detail as well. And what is really important for us is that we can give it a customer-oriented approach. That means at the center, apart from expert testing, there are also customer studies, either with BMW staff, basically, or with external customers as lab rats, so to speak. We created situations where our respondents, so to speak, can feel as if they're at the car dealers, you know, going to the car dealers for a test drive, basically, and they don't even realize that they're sitting in a huge simulator. So what's important here is that these results from these customer studies can flow back into our product so that the sheer pleasure of driving is really brought across to our customers, and our customers can evaluate that. So let's take a closer look at things. What is our concept like exactly? What about the portfolio of different simulators? So we have come up with a concept, a scalable concept of motion systems. On the left-hand side, as symbols, the 2 large simulators. One has 9 degrees of freedom, the other has 7 degrees of freedom. So a degree of freedom, 18 by 21 meters on the left-hand side. And the second from the left-hand side has a sledge system with a good 20 meters in length. And that provides us with a great deal of possibilities. And then on the 3rd floor, we've got these motion systems. On the right-hand side here, those are these hexapodes or Siebendorf systems with 3 degrees of freedom, or also static systems. And we supplement this with the respective visualization systems, obviously. For the large simulators, we've got the projection systems in a dome. Obviously, in the 3rd floor, we use LED walls, for instance. We were the first car manufacturer that use these LED walls for driving simulators as well. But we obviously also have simpler simulators symbolized on the right-hand side that simply work with TV screens so that we can work with higher numbers at justifiable costs as well. So here on the right-hand side, that is an image of an LED wall, for instance. Maybe let me talk about these LED walls briefly. You can see it here as well quite nicely. These LED walls have the advantage over a projection system that they deliver a very bright image, also during daylight, that they really bring you nice contrast. Black is really black and not middle gray. And this is something that enables us to show nighttime driving, for instance, or scenes at dusk or dawn. What's also important for us, we run all our simulators with a uniform software platform. We call it Spider. We developed this driving simulation software ourselves in BMW research. This has had a long tradition in principle, and that is a mitigation framework at the end of the day, where we also develop a lot of the modules ourselves. For instance, the modules that control third-party traffic, the smart agents that move pedestrians or that can drive vehicles autonomously through cities. That's what we develop ourselves. Also the motion system control, we call it true motion perception. That is a very important building block in order to use the simulators properly. And here we also want to bring our motion queuing software to a new setup, basically, so we can roll it out to all our systems, a scalable approach, so that we've got the same code, the same setup for all the simulators. Having said that, there will be different modules that can be activated depending on the use case and will be scaled or fed with parameters then. What's also important, having said that with Spider, you can integrate various different models from various different areas. We always use the driving dynamics model of our chassis colleagues, also for the UIDAC tests basically, and we're in a position to be flexible about new systems, to integrate new systems as well. We've got Windows computers integrated as well, even though the whole system is Linux-based, but we're very, very flexible with all that, and we integrate all kinds of different models up until the sound models of our acoustics colleagues, so that at the end of the day, we have the real BMW driving experience integrated. So let us take a look at the development process once again. At which junctures do we typically use driving simulation? That is from left to right. On the left-hand side, there's the ideas phase, a very early phase, and on the right-hand side, SOP, or start of production. The driving simulation obviously comes from a very early stage, where with rough models, concepts are evaluated, where ideas are evaluated and then fine-tuned and processed together with experts, but also in part we already evaluate that with our customers. And before you start serial production or serial development, customer acceptance needs to be evaluated properly, finally, so that you know everything is specified correctly, and you don't run the danger later on when everything has been implemented and you test the vehicle, you have to change everything again. So at that phase, you see safety news or customer acceptance. Those are typical use cases that happen together with the customers. What's up and coming is the use cases that we saw this morning as well, or that we heard about in the science talks. That's the use cases that we apply in phases where we otherwise had prototypes already and use those on the test tracks. And piece by piece, step by step, we're virtualizing these topics as well. So we don't need prototypes anymore. We can save that, and only at certain junctures we actually use the real hardware. Next, I would like to show you a couple of current examples of what we do in our lab, so to speak. It's a selection of use cases that we are driving right now, or that we have been driving for the last 2 years. One is the user driving experience 2025. We are in the process of developing a new system of building blocks. You might have heard about that. That's going to get serial next year. Also an operating concept, a completely new operating and vision system is going to be launched. Here on the right-hand side, a panoramic vision system, no combi instrument anymore, but all the relevant information will be projected into the lower area of the windscreen. And this is a very exciting topic, and that has to be developed properly so that the customers can understand it, evaluate it properly, understand that these depictions also work with the driving assistance systems. Therefore, we had a common project with the driving assistance colleagues and the UI colleagues who developed this project over the last 2 to 3 years. And in the meantime, we have a number of vehicles and mock-ups where this can be tested, and we keep developing that with an iterative approach. And out of that, we also developed a number of customer studies in order to test that with our customers as well. Next, I'm going to show you a short video of our latest simulator that has only been online for about a year now. And what you can already see, typical vertical dynamics. This is a typical BMW test track that has been digitalized on the basis of a LiDAR scan. And in the background, you see the motion is generated by an online drive, so it's not an offline drive, but the driver is really driving live, presses down the accelerator, steers the car, brakes the car. That is done and implemented in the background. And then we've got a real-time simulation model at the same time that is running, because only with that, in this interplay and with the exact tire model, I can have a vertical dynamics evaluation or also an evaluation of the springs. Last year we had a number of tuning sessions with shock absorber manufacturers where we use digital twins, or I shouldn't say digital twins, but digital models of future cars where we did the fine-tuning work together with them. Of course, the methodology was validated before that with a really existing vehicle and the digital twin that we had built for that purpose. And when you do vertical dynamics fine-tuning or shock absorber fine-tuning, there is also interaction with cross dynamics, and cross dynamics is very important, and therefore these test benches were cross-checked for cross dynamics use cases where with our high dynamics simulator we can drive on a 4-lane motorway. As you can see here, we've got the same multiple body simulation model that is in the background active here. And so far, the cross-dynamic characteristics can be tested and evaluated here in order to find the right compromise with the shock absorber system. What we really have here is we have a direct cue, or a one-to-one motion depiction has been realized. So if the vehicle drives 5 meters to the right in the virtual world, then the simulator drives 5 meters to the right as well and shows the same acceleration as the simulated vehicle shows. Right, the question is what else is going to come? As I said, I've already learned a couple of things today, which I don't have on my slide here, but we keep developing, needless to say. And one of our big topics, and also a research topic for us, where we also will award a doctorate in future, is this topic of smart agents. That means models for people in cities, for pedestrian, bicycle drivers, other third parties, where you have testing scenarios for very dynamic situations in cities, because cities are much more complex than motorways, obviously. In the middle, we've got low mu testing. That means driving dynamics in low mu conditions. We always tested for high mu, or mu equals 1 so far. But if we were able to do that, low mu testing, that would be a huge benefit. But first of all, our tires have to be enabled for that. We have to give it a step-by-step approach. But this is going to be one of our next big steps. And on the right-hand side, we see mixed reality vehicle in the loop, and at the moment we're building a proof of concept, because for certain topics. Controllability tests and driving simulators have their tests, are subject to limits, and we can use the synergy, obviously. We can use our virtual worlds here, and because of that virtual worlds, we can drive in a real vehicle, but we can see the virtual world in a mixed reality goggles. But the driver really can see the steering wheel, the dashboard, and everything, because they are also shot through a camera and displayed then. So here we are again. So then maybe in summary, a short summary, we have, for one thing, in our driving simulation center, we have the possibility of displaying a driving experience in a very realistic way and evaluate it in a very realistic way. We've got a broad range of simulators to offer the right use case for everybody. Very important is customer-oriented development, which we want to contribute heavily to. And coming back to the title of my presentation, in driving simulation, the vehicles of the future can be driven, obviously. And doing that, we drive the technology and the functions of the future, and therefore we call it driving the future now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Peller. I don't know if that was intended. In one of the slides, you could see a BMW with Stuttgart number plates. Yeah, our software developers sometimes put a couple of Easter eggs into our presentations. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Peller, for that. Our next keynote is headlined, and I have to read that: customer-centric development of driver assistance functions by characteristics-oriented methodology. And what exactly is behind that, we will learn from Dr. Benedikt Strasser from Audi. Welcome.
Yeah.
Hello and good afternoon from my behalf, and thank you very much that I can be here today. Well, Bernard said it at the beginning. Probably it's one of those small success stories that come where a PhD work basically was brought into serious production, and that's why I'm more than happy to introduce it. Let me just tell you something about me or my organization that has a long name. At Audi, we decided to bring together specific functions because we thought we need exactly that to probably take over our components and our competitors, I mean. So we have the pre-stage development and we have the customer-centered development of driving assistance functions. So thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much, Daniel Nightline. He's also in the room and he supported me massively with the presentation. And quite a few, or many colleagues basically, participated in this presentation. So the entire project, or the results that I'm going to present, come from the Metavi project. And we were more than grateful that we were part of this group of 6 led by the University of Applied Sciences. Thank you very much. It was a new start. And I would like to tell you an anecdote, and we talked about this in the break. Bernard Schick and I think 2007, 2008, met for the first time. I was a doctorand back then, and we worked just right at this topic back then, and probably the time wasn't right for the objectivation, because our engineers just wanted to test drive. But I think now the time is right to make progress in this topic. So for time reasons, I just jump over it and let me just jump into it. Well, the motivation is self-explaining. We are absolutely convinced of the fact that if being driven shall be realized, if we manage to make our customers co-drivers or passengers, we need to put more focus on the wishes, the desires of the customers. And therefore we have to place them in the center massively. And our idea, our conviction is that we can measure attributes and make it evaluable. We also believe that we can support the development process when it comes to speed, because we can measure the needs at the very early stage, and we can support all those that develop at a later stage so that they know what their goals are. And what is very important at Audi is we always talk about our own DNA. And I believe everyone that gets into the Audi knows what the chassis DNA is. Everyone knows what the design DNA is, but I think up to now no one knows what ADAS DNA is. Well, of course, it's a huge feature development pace that lies behind it. But this is the reason why we are working on this topic relentlessly. Just very briefly, how does it work? Let me just use one example, active lane departure warning, ALDW, so what the process is like and how it works. So a lot was developed in the Metavi project. Well, just very briefly, because we don't only have driving assistants, colleagues here, active lane dynamic warning. So that's the system that is absolutely annoying. It basically intercepts if you get close to the center line, if you want to skip lanes, skip curves, which is basically fun for many people, and then the car pushes me back into the middle of the road, into the lane, and wants to keep me in a specific or specifically defined area. If I cross the line, you feel a vibration or an acoustic warning or a vibration warning in our case. And the system has many options to set, many parameters to set. We have an early detection, a late warning, etc. So you can actually switch off the warnings. And one of the systems that we have, well, basically we picked out this system because it's one of the systems that, well, is accepting and has to receive a lot of criticism. We were in Kempton, we were allowed to use the lab there, probably the one or the other know the room. Basically we started here and we selected this specific track because it's close to the University of Applied Science, so therefore it was quite good for us. And it was also very suitable because the track that we were able to drive contains everything we need. And despite the speed, basically, well, everything was allowed that we wanted to test. So it was the ideal track. The track was highly measured, so they're very precise data. Because we didn't want to evaluate subjectively, because we wanted to have an objectification of the attitudes and attributes. We had 24 probans or test drivers, and all in all we had 5 different applications of the lane assist. Of course, competitors and also our car and our system. And every test driver was allowed to drive 3 or 4 applications and evaluate and assess them on the track. Well, I think this is what has been seen quite often. So we basically worked with MX Eve. It proved actually great. So there are 2 insights that I want to share with you. What was very important was that, or to have a comparison vehicle. So this is one key learning we had. So every human being needs to be able to compare him or herself, to be able to depict a deviation upwards or downwards. And we used it very intensely. We readjusted in retrospect, and we used the scale from 1 to 10 plus a good and bad scale, so a bidirectional one. Because sometimes you have the setting, well, you can say it's bad, it's good, or it's very, very bad, very, very good. But when it comes to the interception bit, you can also have the question, is it weak or strong? So then we had a scale from 1 to 10, from weak to strong. So we went into the evaluation assessment quite quickly, and this is just for you to see. So there are differences. And we were not very sure whether the test drivers can basically analyze it, but we received very good results, probably also because of the good team, etc., and we build on that. Measurement technology, what was used. So I don't know, probably we are Genesis Gold Card members quite soon. Well, we have quite a few systems in operation. We use them worldwide. So the same activities are started in the US and in China. So there are huge differences. So that means our target vehicle, our ego vehicle, is equipped with the Genesis in order to be able to locate the position in detail. Then when we have our own vehicles, we use the bus, of course, and if we have third-party vehicles, we have other measurement systems. And what we also use is we use the icons that are analyzed. Just as an example, what did we do basically? So we can see the use cases on the side. So if I really overpress, so with different speeds, so we ask the test drivers to drive between 80 and 160 kilometers an hour. So to drive on the country roads and in cities, well, just normal, the allowed speed, of course, but as soon as they went out, they could go faster. But they had to play against the system as well. And then you had to overpress without indicating the direction. Then, of course, you have an interception by the system, and then the system allows you to continue to drive. So we try to get scenarios in order to measure our preset KPIs. And with this scenario, we were able to measure 10 KPIs. It just is drifting, so you just drive very slowly towards the line, then you get this rebound, so to say, or you drive in a curve or on a straight line. And here you can see some examples which KPIs were measured. So most of all, the question was, when does the system intervene? What's the pressure? What momentum? So when does the system allow me to drive myself again? So after this interception, and those are the objective measurement values that could be measured. Well, you're not supposed to be able to read that, but this is just an overview. So point number 1, we have subjective questions. Every test driver answers them. Afterwards, the subjective evaluations are joined and brought together. We set up and we build up the scenarios. Every scenario is driven 10 to 15 times to have a good measurement values. But of course, not everything works properly every time. And then at the end, we try to bring them together in 2 areas, subjective and objective. One important point for us is the discussion afterwards. So when it comes to the subjective evaluation, you can't just summarize them in a mathematic way. You need to have a very intense discussion. The teams need to sit together at a table, and we basically had workshops where we try to bring together the results in order to derive the right results for us. It would be nice if it was automatic, but the human factor is important and can help to improve the things. Then one of the most difficult exercises was, because it was difficult to implement, was to challenge our own results. So the colors here are great on the LED screen. We had 2 competitors. So one example that was seen very obvious, so the control-free corridor. We knew that there is a challenge. Well, we are at the dotted line with an MLE Evo. I think you can say that it's a Q7 A6 that can be found on the streets. And in those vehicles, or we applied our target values into those vehicles, and we had a subjective testing or evaluation carried on because we wanted to know whether we are on the right track with regards to our derivations or not. And we were able to see improvements. Well, of course, we didn't reach all goals that we had said, but what I said at the beginning is to include wishes and desires in an existing system is very, very difficult. And therefore, it's very difficult to integrate all those things at an early stage. The moments need to be simulated. The forecast needs to be quite early so that all realizations can be possible. And therefore, for that reason, it was not perfect what we achieved, but we managed to achieve it. So early interception and late interception. Afterwards, we went to simulator, and well, I was really jealous what I saw with BMW, but because that was really impressive. So afterwards, we tried to bring it and implement it into the simulator just next door, and I think we were quite successful. And this is a topic we will be talking about, because this is just the beginning of everything. Probably we try to go to BMW because there we have more opportunities, and we will see whether we're allowed. But anyhow, we tried to implement the different applications. Unfortunately, we had to work with different systems because we were not able to implement our own software into the simulator. But what we did is we evaluated two different situations that could be driven in the simulator and on the road. But Bernard Chick and I, we basically found out that there's a huge potential. We really have to continue this work, and we have to integrate simulations before first prototypes. Or we have to implement it in a simulation to reduce the number of prototypes. So just very, very briefly, so it is a success story from our point of view. The project is not very old, but I think we finalized it last year, right? Last year it was. So we are just, and I hope you know it, we have a new car on the street, which is the Q6 e-tron, one of our biggest electric vehicle, and our product offensive is just around the corner. And in this vehicle, we were able to apply all that, not only the lane assist. Daniel and his team are working intensely to expand it to different use cases, and I think we have made a very big progress. Also when it comes to cross steering, we've made huge progress. Then ACER Active, so adaptive cruise control, this is what it's called in our vehicles. There we have very good KPIs and very good results that can be used. And our first applications were wrong, were not right. And you can see here at the top the corridor without intervention, because the key property is steering intervention as late as possible. This is the subjective feeling of the customers, and the KPI is basically our corridor without intervention, so our objective definition, and we have reached it. So in the series production, we've made it to have our range or our objective that was achieved, and I think all that shows that we went down the right road. So, well, I would not read out the conclusion because, well, of course you can read that we are super successful, but I want to share a few insights with you, what the challenges are that are in front of us, because you can't see those challenges on this slide. One hard learning and one hard challenge is China, because this method cannot be applied in China. So we try to have a differential GPS measurement details. We try to get it just around the local authorities, but this is very difficult. So one of the topics that we have to deal with a lot, the question, how can we use a methodology, how can we develop a methodology that can be used and applied in China? We believe in our objective and methodology. The second point is we try to integrate AI-based solutions. I said it before, we always measure the HMI because we know where we need to know what is displayed, and we don't have this information from competitors. So that's where we use AI. So we use AI in order to be able to analyze what display means, and one crucial point, and we've heard it today already. So the UIX session was very inspiring, great, where I can take a lot with me from those, and we will come back for this. HMI. We are deeply convinced that UI UX needs to be objectified somehow, and this is a huge field for us and all young scientists that are here today. We really look forward if you start thinking and we start thinking at another point so that we can cooperate in this area as well. So it's not a nice area to go on holiday, but it's also a nice area here to make progress, to develop technology and to cooperate with the University of Applied Science. This is the end of my presentation, and I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Dr. Benedikt Strasser. And that was the first part of Explore-to-Innovate 2024 halftime. That is, if we stick to it. So let's have a short break, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then we continue with the next keynote. And this keynote has something to do with this location. So just take a walk, get something to drink, and I'll see you in a bit. Thank you very much.
Right, and now I would like to warmly welcome you to the second half of this game, to stick to this image, and to the next keynote coming from Mark Hausmann, head of the Continental Development Center, right around the corner from here, from driver assistance to autonomous mobility, and how the greenfield in Memmingen leads to future mobility is the topic. Mark Hausmann, is he here already? Here he is. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to be able to be here at the Explore-to-Innovate event. Explore-to-Innovate, not only innovation from my point of view, but also a lot of inspiration and information. I hope I can contribute to that as well. As has been said, I'm Mark Hausmann, head of the Test Services Infrastructure and Engineering Campus Memmingen. We call it the Campus Memmingen, but we're in Benningen here, obviously. So since last March, we have been direct neighbors with IFM and the University of Applied Science in Kempten, and we're all glad about that. Since 2016, we have been developing innovative driving assistance systems here at the location in Memmingen. Our competence focus is really on the testing and validating of components, of whole systems, and also of driving features for assisted and automated driving. And also when it comes to autonomous driving, as well as further innovative and intelligent mobility solutions, it doesn't always have to be about wheels and tires. The location here in Memmingen will play a very important role also in future. The industry, automobility is growing. Autonomous driving is one of the biggest future fields, megatrends of the car industry. For more than 20 years, I was in driving dynamics, and 5 years ago I went into ADAS AD, and the first question always was, when are there these autonomous cars available? When can I try one out? Which year is this going to happen? After that, things quieted down to an extent. Earlier on, I read from honeymoon phase towards facing realities. That's the way it goes with trends. Usually it is fluctuating movements, waves that go up and down, and very often it takes a couple of times for such a wave to prevail. My personal experience over the last couple of years, we've worked on the execution on the one hand. On the other hand, we made a lot of progress, particularly when it comes to AI. So where do we stand right now? That's the question. And I say autonomous driving is right around the corner, right in front of the door, but not in the individual passenger transport so much. I'll come to that later on once again, and I hope that I could excite you a little bit about that so that you don't go away to watch the football or have something to eat too early. So what can you expect from me today? For one thing, let's move on. For one thing, yeah, I've got two topics that I've got. It was already said at the beginning by Mr. Eder. Here in this ecosystem, we also settled as Conti, as Continental, and I'm glad about that. It all develops very nicely. So I want to talk about the campus of Memmingen. Why are we here, and what does the campus Memmingen contribute to driver assistance, to autonomous mobility as well? And talking about this topic, I would also like to show you currently what are the trends in the field of autonomous mobility, what drives the development, what are the growth markets, and obviously also where are we at when it comes to autonomous driving, autonomous mobility. So let me get started with the greenfield Memmingen. So how come that we settled here in Memmingen in the first place? In the last couple of years, Bernhard Schick always explained that very nicely, and so far I keep it short. What's very good for us is that with the civil usage of the former military airfield here in Memmingen South, historically there was already a testing site, the Fact Motion GmbH. That was certainly one of the reasons why the Special Purpose Association said we want to get autonomous industry settled here. In 2015, Mr. Fackler, Fact Motion, and us, we started a long-term cooperation agreement, long-term cooperation for the use of the test tracks. In the years 2016, 2017, these test tracks were further built, were further expanded so that the development, the testing and evaluation of driver assistance systems was made possible at that time. The second reason is Memmingen is smack in the middle of the further developments locations that we have here in Germany. That means logistics, very, very good here, very short ways to develop things together with the colleagues here. And the third point, that was also a desire of the cluster here to settle research and science. I don't have to tell you anything more about that. We're here. From my point of view, you've got a great ecosystem here which develops greatly and which is a great basis for autonomous mobility and to drive autonomous mobility. So until we built our new premises here on our part, it took some time. Having said that, once we got started, it all happened pretty quickly. From February 22 until summer of 23, we built our new location right opposite from here. We could implement everything very quickly. As you can see to my right, I would have almost said the green field. It all looks brown, but that was due to the season when we took the picture here. So apart from the military shelters, it was really a green field, nothing more. And this term green field, I took it consciously, that historically stems from city development and planning. We could really build on the green field here, which brought a couple of requirements on the one hand, but on the other hand, that is what is so great about it. There is an endless plethora of possibilities due to that. And I'm really glad that we have been given this great degree of freedom here, basically, and that the requirements from the point of view of the users, that is the system tests, we could respectively define and implement in the right way. So I can say that we have a highly modern location where state-of-the-art development possibilities are here, and thus automobility is getting closer day by day. Right, finally, to conclude my introduction, I've got a short movie that I would like to show you, and at the end of the day, that shows you in 30 seconds how we build things here. Unfortunately, we had to demolish one of these shelters. How we can do it much better, you can see in N-Dynamics with shelter 16. In our case, it was smack in the middle of our construction site. We've got around a 3 hectares large construction site in the foreground. This is the construction of the office and development location, 4,000 square meters of office space. In the background, the so-called vehicle integration hall, 2,300 square meters. The whole location is not too big. We developed it for 150 permanent jobs, and I am glad that, as is the case when you build something new, there is always the one or the other small hiccup. But at the end of the day, last year in October, we could officially open this location. And having said that, I would like to say thank you not only to everybody who was there, but also to everybody who supported us in that, so we could realize and implement that. So what else can you expect from me today? Apart from the location of Memmingen, and I want to give you more information about the campus later on. I would also like to talk about driver assistance and autonomous mobility, obviously. And yeah, I would like to get started by the main motivation. The main motivation hasn't changed for us. That's still the Vision Zero. That means the vision of accident-free driving. We want to make sure that safety for everybody on the roads is improved. The most important cause for accidents on our roads is still humans. That's human error, basically. More than 1 million people die in road accidents every year on our roads. That's statistics from 2018, and unfortunately it hasn't improved. That is way too much. That means autonomous driving modern sensors, artificial intelligence should be in a position to reduce these human errors by a quantum leap, particularly the integration of various different sensor technologies. Cameras, radar, LiDARs will bring considerable additional value for safety, comfort, and also the availability of functions on the road. I would like to get started with the current trends on the market of autonomous mobility. For one thing, we have here, and I've already said so, market volume. Market volume is growing significantly and is developing significantly. The predicted volume of driver assistance systems and autonomous driving functions in the years from 2020 to 2030, according to Statista, that is in this decade, it'll grow from some $80 billion to more than $300 billion. So that's a huge growth market. And the second thing that we see here is that the scope per vehicle, the driving function, the assistant, the safety functions will all increase. What yesterday was in the premium class, in the upper class, you can get in the golf class now. Having said that, when I say golf class, I mean that very positively. I'm a member of Generation Golf, but I could also call it the volume market, obviously. And we also see that new business fields and that dynamics are developing. New business fields, new ideas, new companies, new players are moving into this old market. We separate software from the hardware. It's a little bit like the smartphone on wheels, this new car. And what does that mean? These trends, at the end of the day, do not only trigger wants, but also needs, basically. And these are needs that we see in the area of product portfolio and business models. Both will permanently have to adapt to these market developments, and that very quickly and permanently. It can happen nowadays that you're developing a new product, and be it for economic or technological reasons, this is already a repetition, maybe because a market competitor was much faster than you and was much cheaper than you. What we also see is strategic partnerships. Strategic cooperations can become very important if you have a new business model, but in this broad area you don't have any competences. Time to market is a super important factor. That means it might make sense to cooperate with a partner in an area where 1 and 1 is more than 2 makes sense, you know. And last but not least, increasing competition. As I said, this market grows, this market develops. There is more and more software in the vehicles. There are more and more competitors. The old world between OEMs, tier 1, tier 2, all of that is changing very fast. Right. What does that mean when it comes to these growth markets? We see 3 growth markets, and I'd like to give you some insight into that. On the one hand, we see a volume market, we see a premium market, and then we see a service market. The volume market, that brings me back to what I said, Golf, Volkswagen Golf, basically. Volume market and premium market, that is very important. That is our target audience, the individual traffic. As far as the service market is concerned, that looks slightly different. This is about moving goods or moving people, basically. That means also here we are at an automation level of 2 plus maybe, and here from 2 plus also up to 3 currently. Here we're talking about level 4 in services. That means autonomous driving. So if we take a look at the architecture strategy, to keep it very simple, the volume market, we sell hardware boxes, control units with software. The software has a specific scope of functions. That is what we currently have in terms of architecture for current vehicles. If I want to have more scope, I have to sell more boxes. That means I scale with hardware. In the premium market, it looks slightly different. In the premium market, we've seen that there are more and more driving functions. The driving functions are getting more and more complex. That means we need more and more sensors. We need a bigger sensor suite, and particularly a highly performing computing unit in order to realize that in the first place. There are new degrees of freedom, certainly also for OEM, new business models. But in an ongoing series, I can also add ongoing functions. I can optimize things also over the air. But at the end of the day, both models are, I sell hardware with sensors, with computing units, and also depending with software. As far as the service market is concerned, it looks slightly differently. In terms of the architecture, it's very similar to the premium market, maybe a little bit more high-performing sensors. But at the end of the day, I don't sell hardware, I sell a service here. So I lend something, basically. I rent out something, and I'm paid per use, so to speak, like with a taxi, or an Uber per kilometer transported. And if you keep that in the back of your mind, and this is, to understand this picture, the details are not relevant, but if you start on the left-hand side, we start on a level 2 parking up to a level 3, 4. But what we can see here is that the increasing degree of automation leads to the number and complexity of driving functions increasing rapidly. That means I need more sensors, I need a larger sensor suite, I will need a highly performing computing unit. And when we talk about level 3, then I also have to do it redundantly. I have to add redundance with sensors and computers, computing units. That makes it very complicated. So what does that mean? With these system configurations, if you want to operate a vehicle platform that has volume and premium in that bandwidth, basically, then it is very important to find economic solutions. Economic solutions to cover that means, from our point of view, we need modulable and scalable, complete solutions. And these full stack systems, these complete solutions, are based on a multi-sensor approach. We've got highly dissolving cameras, ultrasound sensors, LiDARs, radars, and as I said already, these high-performing computing units. Continental can work with these requirements. We can offer cost-efficient full-stack solutions with a central AI-based domain controller in order to cover all these requirements. Right. But this is only half the truth. At the end of the day, we also talk development here. We saw that earlier. In order to develop such full-stack solutions, I need the components that I described earlier on. Sensors, highly performing computing units on the one hand. On the other hand, I need system and software. That means starting with the sensor processing up to computer vision, and at the end of the day, also the driving functions, the customer experience functions. We saw it, cruising, parking, in order to be able to develop all these. What's equally important is what is in the middle here. I like to call it the kit. We call it the engineering ecosystem. We've got our own engineering ecosystem. And at the end of the day, that is a holistic development platform so that an effective way of developing all that becomes possible in the first place. A modular software platform is included. We have development tools that are integrated, data-driven development tool chains, infrastructures, as well as services for cloud and test are included here in order to make all this economic and scalable. Right, then I also promised autonomous driving, and I told you that it wasn't individual transport. But what we see is, we see the start in the area of trucks. That means automated lorries. Continental works together with the US company Aurora. We've got an exclusive partnership for commercial, scalable, autonomous lorry systems. Together with this partner, we are currently planning the first scalable autonomous system in automobile quality. And that is important as a word, automobile quality. And also on a large scale. On a large scale doesn't mean hundreds, but we're talking thousands of lorries. And in the year, that was also a question, in the year 2027, therefore right in front of the door, we want to go serial, first of all, in the United States. If you ask yourself now, why autonomous lorries, let me give you a couple of arguments, information. That's ODD, the operational design domain. That means where it's going to be used, that is absolutely ideal. That's highway, autobahns. We've got one driving direction. We've got good markings on the motorway. We don't have bicycles and pedestrians, obviously. So that's one topic. Second topic, goods transport, freight transport is a huge established market. It doesn't have to be built, and it's growing as well. Take a look at the driver. We've got a worldwide problem with drivers, and we don't find any drivers, no young drivers anymore. That means autonomous lorries can drive around the clock, can deliver goods around the clock. With human drivers, you have to bear in mind steering times and resting times. And once again, vision zero. We would like to reduce accidents where lorries are involved as well, having said all that. So with autonomously driven lorries, fuel consumption can be reduced by up to 10%. And with longer distances, we can also reduce driving times by up to 1/3. That means an autonomous lorry has already returned on a longer distance with new freight when the conventional lorry with the human driver hasn't even reached the first destination. That means autonomous lorries are, let me call it, a game changer in this highly competitive and cost-driven transport business. But I don't want to stay in one slide as well. You're all engineers and technicians, and also here, I've got an architecture, a system setup, so to speak. Continental, in this partnership, we will be responsible for the autonomous driving systems, and we will use our expansive product portfolio of sensors, units, high-performance computing units, telematics units. The integration into the cloud needs to be done. We will use all that. And also, we will deliver a full return system. Level 4 is needed, obviously, so that you've got a primary pass, an autonomous system. That will come from Aurora. And we will deliver the return layer autonomously on the part of Continental. So this is going to be a hardware service relation that's going to be based on kilometers, or in that case, miles driven. Then, last but not least, and finally, I would like to come back to the campus here in Memmingen and to the system testing. And I would also like to talk about the challenges that we have here and what the campus here in Memmingen can contribute to solving these challenges. I would like to start with the background and with the changes. I would call it a sea change, a change of paradigm, where we move away from the old world, from the old testing. In the meantime, we've got completely different standards. We've got AI-driven, data-driven development now. This is what GPT understands by data-driven development. For us, from our point of view, it's very important to say that the development changes in terms of time processes. That means at a very early point in time, we need very high-quality data already so that these models can be trained at the end of the day, can be evaluated and optimized. This is where changes are going to be needed, where we have to face changes. We saw earlier on also the whole business in the volume market from components, more and more components, network systems. That means the testing requirements will increase exponentially here as well. And in order to solve that, to get a grip on that, simulation can be one answer, or will be one answer. Simulation will also become necessary for official requirements such as Euro NCAP or other legal requirements. When we think in terms of higher automation, autonomous driving, then the whole topic of robustness is a super important topic. It's not going to be important just use your given test cases and test things and say the system fulfills all the requirements. But we have to make sure that all corner cases, all operational cases can be covered, can be fulfilled before these vehicles can be unleashed on the road. Yeah, and what can the campus in Memmingen contribute to solving all these challenges? For one thing, I'm very happy and also a little bit proud, even if this is far away from what the BMW colleagues showed us today, but we've been able to implement a very modern hardware in the loop form here. That means apart from testing and validation of real vehicles in real environment that is on a test track or in public transport, we can take our products and test them in the virtual world in real time and validate them at the same time. Thanks to test automation, we can do that 24/7. Yeah, and also thanks to the new campus here in Memmingen, I'm very glad that we've got very fast data upload and cloud processing. With this fast data upload, it has become possible to take the data from the test track and move it directly into our cloud, process it very quickly in the cloud, annotate it very quickly, and then use it for the development in this holistic ecosystem and make it available to developers on a worldwide scale, really. I would like to pinpoint two more topics that I find very important here on the campus. That is the holistic test service. Here in Memmingen, we've got the possibility so that everything can be done very effectively. We can cover all areas, components, systems, driving functions, if it's basic or application developments. And all that, for all that, we can deliver or we can offer one service from fleet services, exceptional authorizations, vehicle built-up, vehicle integration. All of that can be done with very scalable vehicle platform systems, scalable sensors, scalable measuring technology, scalable reference technology. All of this is so scalable and so agile with methods such as 3D printing, 3D scan, so that all our development partners can benefit from that on a very similar platform. And seamlessly, with that, we can turn prototypes into serial vehicles seamlessly. And we also have drive training here on site, so we can cover the whole portfolio, really. Innovative and efficient test methods, that's also very important. The increasing complexities, paradigm shifts, data-driven development. We permanently require methods that keep up, that are innovative, that are effective. I'm glad that we've got this super competent team here that supports all the methods with this toolbox, be it a classical E-bar with the topic of FOT, field operation testing. We talked about that earlier on, so that we can reduce kilometers. And by the same token, we can use these methods and can prove that it's still on the same level of efficiency, or whether we use current methods, DOE, design of experiments, for instance, so that simulated methods are enabled to evaluate certain simulated testing points to get out of these old paradigms. And so we can always use the latest methods for testing and evaluating. Of course, we still have challenges. Big data, I already talked about it. Restrictions, we talked about China earlier on. There are restrictions, there are requirements that are varying from level 3. In Germany, it's additionally the KBA, this safety requirement, whether it's worldwide, United States or China. It varies a great deal. It's not going to become simpler. Integration efforts, cybersecurity, more and more complex vehicle structures, more and more complex network systems with more and more components, third-party components. All that makes for a big challenge for the cybersecurity to be circumnavigated during development and testing. Reference sensors become more and more important with higher levels of automation. the basis is a correct reference system. That is a reference system that understands the ground rules depending on the use case and displays those ground rules then as well. And last but not least, I personally, as an old tester, am of the conviction that V&V validation, AD validation of more and more complex systems is a big challenge, maybe a bigger challenge than the development of the software itself. Right. I would come to my conclusion, and I would like to summarize things again. From my point of view, the industry of autonomous mobility is growing, and it's growing fast. Autonomous driving is just around the corner. We will have level 4 vehicles in the area of freight transportation. We will see them in the coming years on our roads. As far as the volume market is concerned, we see strong growth due to, for one thing, the constantly increasing number of functions. And then from level 2 plus to level 3, 4, as far as those are concerned, as I already said, we have to have economic, modular and scalable solutions. If you ask yourself, what is the advantage of higher automation? For one thing, safety, but also comfort and efficiency. Continental offers these necessary safety products, but also other solutions for more trust in autonomous driving. And yes, there are still challenges here, challenges and open questions before autonomous vehicles, particularly personal vehicles in individual transport, become part and parcel on our road. There are still legal and regulatory challenges, requirements. From my point of view, in Europe, we're right on track. There is this topic of cybersecurity, but also security of AI technology and reliability of AI technology, but maybe most important, public trusts, to gain public trust step by step for these technologies. Let me finally come back to the campus in Memmingen. Exactly these safety and security products we can test and validate here in a bundle here on the new location, right opposite from here, together with the test track and the partners here. With our innovative, effective, and efficient testing methods, we do this under real circumstances, but also in virtual test environments. And also as far as level 4 autonomous trucking is concerned, this location here will play a very important role. You can be excited about that. We will bring mobility in the truest sense of the word from the test track into the cloud and from the virtual world back into the real world. And we do this with innovative solutions, with innovative, secure and autonomous solutions that will impress you. So I hope I could impress you also a little bit with my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Have a great day, and I hope I did not take too long for the football match. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Marc Hausmann.
Thank you very much, Marc Hausmann. Marc, so we recorded everything, so we will remind you whether everything worked or not. Because the situation was, well, 2016, everyone was talking about automated driving, so the roadmaps were full, were packed, 2018, 2020, 2025, level 4, and now, yeah. But you have to set your own goals, right? So we saw that we basically, well, did some things wrong in specific points. So we just overestimated ourselves. And now the incremental step to whether that this one is the better step is clear, because at the end of the day, we also take up the people, take them by the hand so that they can also use it, which brings us to the topic, Boris. Boris, so the next bit will be a podium discussion about the human factor in the tension field of development efficiency. So just according to the motto, so do we develop just away from the people, or are the people able to use the technology? And I think the roadmaps from the past basically would have strained our customers. And now we have to make sure, we have to try to find out how we do it in the future. We have very interesting people here. Benedikt Strasser, please come to the stage. Then Boris Kirchner, where is he? Boris. Or probably can someone go to the TRE stand? Then Johann Hasselberger from Porsche, and you, yeah, and me. So we just want to talk about the topic, discuss about the topic. So we have covered quite a lot of aspects, and we also saw what BMW and Audi did and do. Well, how did Benedict say? Well, the part of being impressed is basically getting slower, but it shows basically where it goes, which direction it goes. Boris, yeah, the human factor, human being. This was basically a topic of the last time when we met. It was always a topic, somehow different, but it was said that the human being plays an important role, and we should not forget in the technical development. Yeah, this is the reason why we had sports people and athletes back here. You probably remember Mr. Ricek, 6-time world champion. He basically studied with us. Then Sandro Cortese. We had them because we want to know how do people or how do athletes deal with them. And I think it was really exciting with Ricek how they basically deal with the topic of technology, what they have to do mentally, etc. So and I thought, let's talk with engineers. Yeah, there's enough sports later on, isn't there? So I would ask the first question to Benedikt Strasser. My question is, so the announcement of the automotive industry, because there was all automobile manufacturers, they agreed that a lot will happen by 2020. Now it's 2024, and the question is, well, is everyone sobering up with this regard, and what are the reasons, from your point of view, why the things didn't work out as planned? Well, I think it's rather not sobering up, but rather humility, because we were quite ambitious and quite courageous, and I think we were the first ones that failed 200%. And I have to say, I really respect the Daimler colleagues because they made it to level 3. And I think we underestimated different factors. And I think what we underestimated was the complexity to be hold of it in development. We, with our tools, weren't far enough to get things onto the street, and in order to solve this long-term problem. And we also didn't know what is the accident statistics that you need to adhere to be able to produce. And I think we weren't just far enough. And I think at the end of the day, we were not basically ready, because we saw what the toolboxes looked like and how level 3, level 4 requirements could basically match the other levels. This is basically where we failed, but I think we learned a lot. And we definitely learned humility, and we will be taking care more now. Well, humility is human, isn't it? And that brings us back to the factor human being that we talked about quite a lot. Today, in attention of development efficiency, which aspects do you see in this respect? Well, for me, there are two aspects. Number one is, does the human being understand the functions? Can he or she work them? Does he understand how the system works? Does he recommend the system? Would he rebuy it, etc.? Those are different aspects. So the question is the end user really in the focus as we planned him to be? And BMW shows it with their center, how the ways could look like or what could be done. The second aspect is, and there's another problem. I always say, well, Carl Benz, a genius engineer 130 years ago, back then we had 100% success quota of the test engineers. And if I have a look at the quota of today, well, I don't know what it is like. My question is, how many people are still sitting in the car when testing, right? So what we do is we bring them further away. We bring the engineers further away from the vehicle. So they're just sitting in front of simulations. So that leads to the fact that engineers do not manage to build up this experience of how the user can experience the car at the end of the day. And we have to find out, how can we position our engineers? What do we do? How can we get the engineers to come back to the functions so that the software developers understand what basically the goal of the functions are. So we have on the one hand the engineer as a human being and the end customer as a human being, and I think home office doesn't is not good for this point, but anyhow, but I just wanted to say that it's more than just those two facts. Well, Mr. Strasser, what do you do at Audi to meet the requirements and wishes of the customers? Do you also have, I'd say, the situation to develop away from the customer? Well, if we talk about the engineer for a second, I think we developed more for the and in favor of the engineers. I don't know who of you drives an Audi, but I don't know whether anyone knows how many functions an Audi has, what you can do with a long push, for example. And I had the honor to introduce our methods. So what we do is we try to bring back the customer back into the center, and the requirements for our engineers is that they have to deal with our end customers and their wishes and desires. At the same time, we are seeing the challenge of how we get the engineers back into the car. But I think we have to be aware of the fact that it could be difficult to overstrain them with requirements so that they do not have a chance to develop and do what they do, what they're good at. And my personal feeling is, and I probably don't speak on behalf of my company as a whole, I think we have to go back a bit, have to, well, reduce different requirements and functions, etc., so that the developers have their space where they can move in, that they can work more freely. I would like to add Mr. Haselberger to the round. So you are basically just in the midst of software development, right? So at Porsche, you research on how to depict human behavior in the car, right? Test, is it on? Yes. Yeah, that was part of my PhD. What's the goal of your work and what have you done? Well, we all know the driving assistance systems, so they just work as they work, right? So just as it was planned, and most of the time there is no leeway. But, well, we conducted specific studies and we found out that in the cross and diagonal movement, well, things work different. And the goal is to implement this individual driving style of the driver into the vehicle. And a lot happens subconsciously what people do. And to implement that in the car is very, very difficult. And you have to make sure, have to find out how you can make it livable and tangible at an early stage of the development. How important is it to have individual driving functions? What do we need them for? Well, there are different studies. On the one hand, we have ADAS, where the human being drives with the system. And then there is, on the other hand, the situation where the system drives itself. And in particular, when the human being drives with the system needs to know the way, the driving style of the driver, because otherwise there are some problems. Are there different ways of driving, age, etc.? Well, it depends. So you have different reaction times, you have drifting from the road, but you can't say, well, women drive like this, elderly people drive like this, young ones drive like this. This doesn't exist. And when it comes to the driving style, one thing that is very interesting, a young driver that does not have a lot of experience doesn't mean that he is a bad driver. He just uses the system properly. Okay, what is the learning that you have? Which driving style is the most used? Well, there are different studies with this respect. For example, if I asked you, what can you imagine to happen? Or what do you want to have? And then you can say, well, I want the car to drive like me. So what happened is we recorded drivers and then they had to evaluate specific driving styles. But then we also showed them their driving style, and they evaluated or assessed that as a bad one. And not even 5% said their own driving style is a good one. Actually, it was basically what passengers expect when we drive. This is something that we don't want them to. Yeah, exactly. But what we did basically is we really copied their driving style. And there you can see that when you're under control, you allow more things. You skip the curve. But as soon as the system does it, the people think, oh, that's a bad reaction, bad situation. Okay, so that means whenever you're a co-driver, then you're a bit more cautious. Exactly. Well, a question to every one of you. So, do you think that nowadays the end customer is in the center of the development? Yes or no? And if not, what could be done and needs to be done? Well, the presentations showed it, and I think so as well, that there is a change of trends. I think it's also because of the new players on the market. So they didn't have a heritage they have to adhere to. And I think they all basically caused us, all the OEMs in the country, to change our minds. I think we are not good enough, but I think we understood that we have to bring the customers back into our focus. And I think we all have our different approaches. And I think today we were able to see some of them. Let me add something to that. Benedict, you said it as well. The topic of HMI, UX, and driving function. So this combination, I think we have to consider it and look at it from a more holistic point of view. So they have, for example, BMW, they've developed this display concept in the windscreen. Well, probably it's a new revolution, but I think this could be used as a trend, saying, well, the screen is a see-through display. But I believe that the topic of joining HMI and functions is a new one. So in Brazil, we've conducted a study, and we went to Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. Well, it was hard work. Well, I have to say that at this point, because otherwise you will just shorten my wages. But we did a proband study. There were benchmark vehicles, etc. And we tried to find out what the HMI did and how everything works out and works together. Well, you said new player. I think you also think about China, and we have a China expert here. Probably we can ask this question to Boris as well. Yeah, well, at the beginning, before we ask this China question, let me ask you one thing. So the thing that Bernard mentioned, the second aspect. So the second aspect of the human factor, which is the engineer, we build less prototypes, and a smaller part of the developers really test the cars. So do we push the engineer away from the car? Is there a risk that this happens? Yes, I see this risk. But I think there are also good examples of how we can basically intervene. So there are the first traditional engineers that really go into the simulator to tune vehicle tires, for example. All tire manufacturers, they basically are now entering driving simulations and simulators. 10 years ago, nobody would have done that. And I think because of this gamification, things change. I have engineers that do e-racing and e-gaming, and they have such a passion when they test the simulators, and I see the glowing in their eyes, just as the glowing we had when we went to the racetracks on the weekends. Okay, but they also drive it in real life, right? Yes, they also drive it in real life. Okay, so what should happen then? Should they be more in the car? Yes, and I think we have to deprocessualize it. So putting the person more in charge. So what did you did? We developed the FUSA processes, and we segmented everything. So doing everything according to the 6 or 8I principle. If I think back to the beginning of my career at Mercedes 15 or 20 years ago, all the vertical dynamic functions was developed with 8 employees. So we did the requirements, they were only existing in our heads, we programmed the systems, and we tested them and verified them in the car with 8 people. And nowadays they have more than hundreds of employees for just this job. And I would say that the systems have not become better. We develop sisters ASLD in an ASLD way, and if they make mistakes, this could have fatal results. And we need to have a basic process that minimizes those risks, but we have to get away from the fact that every fun feature is developed according to ASPICE 4.0, because the player from China, Asia and the US have a much more pragmatic approach. They are closer to the customer than us. Well, buzzword, China, you said it. So you are working in this area quite a lot. So what do the Chinese do? Can we basically stand up against them, or do we have to worry at the end of the day? Well, I'm an optimist. I think every challenge has and bears a chance for the future. And I think we simply have to accept that the new players are very fast. But this has also to do with the moral of the people there. They have just a plethora of engineers that drop out of school every year, and the working time is from 9 in the morning till 9 in the evening, the entire week. Well, that's 72 hours a week. Well, who does that in Germany? And they don't have extra hours. If they have some public holidays, they also work the Saturdays before and then also 7 days after. But I think we don't want to do that. But I experience a lot of playful thoughts. And for example, there is a manager in a benchmark vehicle that has a great function, and then this manager actually just drives the entire development team crazy because he wants to have it implemented in his car as well. And this reminds me of the good old times when a Ferdinand Piech was part of the development of every piece and part of every Audi or whatever. And I think we need to have a change of mentality of the management. Well, Benedict, one question for you, because you said what the Chinese do, we have to get big eyes, and you say we do system engineering, everything is put into processes, etc. Well, Dieselgate wasn't of help, was it? You said that we have the 4, 6 or 8I principle, and I think when you just push everything into a specific tightness, then it kills creativity. So when I came to Korea the first time, I could see the same thing that was just said. So they went 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and we only went 2 steps forward. So we basically achieved the same thing in a short period of time, but if the processes basically limit us, then the question is, what can we do against this procedure of the Chinese? Well, I think in Germany, we have an employee motivation that is equally high, and we have a creativity in the teams that is also very, very high. And I think we are braver. Our employees are braver if they have the feeling we just let them run. And I also know and think that we have a base loyalty in our companies, and therefore I believe that we don't have to be afraid. But I also think that we have to change our structures so that the people can think freely again. I think we totally exaggerated, excessed with the processes. So I saw a video that was really exciting. So there was a person that has 60 directs, meaning 60 people report directly to him, and when he says something, 60 people hear it and they bring it into their teams. So the hierarchies that we've implemented in our companies, those need to be dissolved, because then our people, well, don't get me wrong, I'm totally convinced of their capabilities, but they get the decisions right now, and then we are back in the Piech world, or probably in the Elon Musk world that sleeps next to his people. But I want a world where information is passed through very quickly, and I think then this together with loyalty and the motivation, we don't have to be afraid. Do you also think like this? I think so. Well, one thing about China, when we think about HMI, they tick totally differently. So, for example, when we look at the parking systems, HMI parking, well, what you can do, you can basically drag and drop your car into the parking spot, and then the car basically just parks itself. So these valid parking functions, they're just incredible. So in China, you can just imagine you have huge parking lots and people have the same parking spot there. And they basically just train the vehicle, the route once or two times, and then the car drives this entire route into the parking spot itself. I think no German OEM can do that. Well, when it comes to HMI parking, we start there, but I think we have to be careful, and this is just my personal opinion, that we do not get lost basically somehow. That because at the end of the day, the customer is important, and probably the customer does not care about the fact whether everything is secure when he taps on the beta version of level 3 or 4. And I think we have to do something to be able to position ourselves in the premium segment. I think that was a good final word, wasn't it? So then thank you very, very much. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to the panelists. Then, yeah. Well, I don't know, it's still 0-0, right? All right, good. Then we didn't miss anything. So then I would like to thank you very, very much, the live stream colleagues. I would like to say goodbye at this point, because in this keynote session we also had a live stream. So we would like to say goodbye to you. We would like to seize the opportunity to thank you and say goodbye to you in the room as well. But please stay here. We have great food. I almost went to the food trucks and not here into the room, so that we will watch football. Please do networking, have food, have drinks, discuss, have an amazing evening. Well, I think we have more summer festivities, right, than anything else, but thank you very much. May I add something? May I say something about you? I would like to glorify your work basically at the IFM, because we can see here how diverse a team needs to be. And although we were shocked because of the votes of the elections of the European Parliament, I think you have to be aware of the fact that such a success can only be achieved together. And thank you very much for doing such a great job at this institute. Well, this goes to the team basically. Well, tomorrow there's a hard day, but the team does a great job. And this year, I basically didn't do a lot. Everything worked out just fine. But thank you very much to my team. And yes, let's get to the nice part. Well, Rolf, one thing, he wants to say something. Those that want to have a tour, well, Rolf will basically take those who want to on a private tour. So just a castle tour. So those that haven't seen the institute, you can join Rolf, and then he will take you for a 10 or 15 minutes tour if you want to. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening. See you tomorrow.
Haben Sie Spaß.
And enjoy yourselves.